Well, I got to tell you, I am very excited as a child who grew up with this guy in my life, Lando Calrissian, Gale Sayers, Nighthawks. I mean, a legend beyond belief. In this book, what have we here, which I finished last night, fantastic memoir, Portraits of a Life. Billy Dee Williams joined me on the West Coast. Afternoon here, but good morning to you, sir. How are you?
Morning. Are you Kirk?
Yes, sir. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, correct.
Well,
yes.
I'm glad you enjoyed the book.
It was great. Oh, fantastic. I have a bunch of questions about it, but I want to start. So when you obviously when George Lucas reaches out after Star Wars, you know Empire Strikes Back is going to be a monster. Did you have any idea at all what Brian's song was going to be? Wound up being watched by 55 million people. Did you have any idea that was going to have any success or no?
No, I think what happens is, when you're an actor, you're just happy to go to work.
Right. Yeah.
And you don't really know. You always hope, obviously, for the best, but you really never really know in very specific terms and where everything is going to go.
And you weren't the first choice, which, I didn't know that Louis Gossett Jr. was originally cast as Gale Sayers, right?
Yeah, it just shows you how interesting the life experience is. I mean, for me, it was meant to be. It was one of those situations. It was a very special experience. I mean, I always regard it as an act of love. It was like one of those perfect moments that comes along once in a while.
It's one of those movies. My dad, who's since gone, loved it, and it got me watching as a kid. It does feel like, and you write about it in the book, and I'm sure it happens all the time. It does feel like one of those guy movies. It's a movie where it's okay for a guy to cry. We get a pass for Brian's song.
Well, I think it allowed for a lot of emotion from various groups of people,
right?
People who have difficulty crying, bigots.
Yeah, yeah. You talk about that in the book, right?
Yeah. So it was always a very I remember once running into a guy who said that whenever he felt cathartic, he would just go into his library, close the door, and put Brian's song and have a good cry.
I found. So, and and this is probably part of the problem, right? When I read your book and the way you looked and the way you acted and the credits you had, and then you talk about, say, Robert Redford, who's a contemporary of yours. You're basically the same age, and you ask a question: why didn't I get the roles? And you knew the answer, but you're asking the question in the book: why didn't I get the roles Robert Redford did? Jeremiah Johnson or The Way We Were. And I hadn't thought about that. Like, if you're Billy Dee Williams in your 30s or 40s in 2024, you're probably going to have Michael B. Jordan's career. You're going to have these movies, but I guess, it was just timing, right? I mean, I guess the world wasn't ready, unfortunately, for that yet, if that makes sense.
When everything is governed by what I've always regarded as the European Western value system, which dominates in literature, the arts, politics, certainly, you have to expect things to evolve in a certain way. But the whole idea is not to allow it to eat you up.
Yeah. And you didn't do that even in the 70s. You didn't find yourself saying, geez, why am I not getting this role? Why am I not? You were able to stay kind of centered?
Well, of course you say these things.
Sure.
But I mean,
right.
I mean, you're going to go through it, but I think at least I can only speak for myself, and I just take the negative and make a positive as much as I can. I work my way around it, work my way through it, and I come up with and still maintain a kind of individualist perspective. And futurist.
Yeah. So reading this book, what I liked about it so much is I'm 50 years old, but I love the sort of era before me, acting was. And there's so many great names I hadn't thought of in years, like Moses Gunn or Roscoe Lee Brown. And then somebody you worked with, I didn't even know you had worked with Henry Fonda. Was that a good experience? Did you find him to be?
It was a brilliant experience.
Yeah.
He's always been one of my favorite actors.
Yeah. Was he one of the guys growing up?
Those actors
Yeah.
who possesses a wonderful subtlety.
Yeah. Who were the people you watched growing up where you said, okay, there was somebody you watched growing up where you said, okay, this is what acting is and this is kind of what I want to do? Was there somebody who jumped out at you?
Well, there were quite a few. Certainly Brando, I'm part of that whole period.
Right.
And George C. Scott. I worked with Paul Muni, who was one of the great actors that this country ever produced. Luther Adler. There are a lot of really wonderful, brilliant people that I've been fortunate enough to have had some association with.
Yeah.
Certainly working with Joni Plowright when we did it on Broadway, we did A Taste of Honey, and she was at that time engaged to Laurence Olivier, so he was doing a play with I think it was Beckett. I think he was doing with Anthony Quinn.
Yep.
Next door. But anyway, I used to see him all the time and spent a lot of time talking to him. So that was a great thrill for me.
Was there a role in your career that you were up for and didn't get, or that you turned down that years later you're like, oh, Jesus, I messed that one up?
Well, I did it. Well, when I met James Baldwin.
Sure. It's a big part of the book. Yeah.
Yeah. Jimmy wanted me to play Malcolm X because he was writing it for Columbia Pictures at the time. So that was certainly a role that I would like to have pursued.
How did you think? What did you think of the Spike Lee Denzel Washington Malcolm X?
Oh, well, Denzel Washington was excellent as Malcolm X.
Yeah, and you said in the book that you turned down
a lot of what Spike Lee used, from what I have been told, was what Jimmy was putting together when he was writing it.
And you said you turned down Malcolm X in the Roots sequel, right? The second part. You wrote in the book because you didn't want to do that to James Baldwin?
Well, yeah, it wasn't the right time.
Yeah, yeah. And then did Star Wars come completely out of the blue? How does that work? Just one day George Lucas reaches out to you or reaches out to your representatives just out of nowhere?
I was on the contract to Berry Gordy at the time. I was under a 7-year contract with him after I did Lady Sings the Blues and Mahogany. And George was, he had gotten a lot of flack about Darth Vader, this big, dark, ominous figure. And so he wanted to correct that whole situation because he was basically thinking in terms of the old adage, the cowboy syndrome. The guy in the white hat and the guy in the black hat.
Black hat, right.
That's what he was really thinking about. So he wanted to correct that. So anyway, he decided to hire somebody like me, a nice-looking brown-skinned boy like me, and to play this character, Lando Calrissian. And of course, when I got the role, when they asked me to play it, and I heard the name Calrissian, I thought, wow, that's interesting. It's like an Armenian name. Let's see what I can do with this.
Right.
And then when I got the cape, that sort of solidified the whole thing for me. I mean, it was like Errol Flynn time.
Right.
So
right.
I sort of built the whole character around those two elements.
You articulated so well in the book from somebody my age. So I'm 6 or 7 when Empire comes out. And that's really the advent, too, by the way, of when VCRs really start exploding. So I watched Empire 50 times before Return of the Jedi came out. And I hated you in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi because you screwed over Han Solo. And you write in the book that, like, you would walk down the street and people would say, like, what the hell are you doing? Why did you do this to the adults? Are saying, people are saying this to you on airplanes, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I picked my daughter up from school, I'd have the kids run up to me and say, "You betrayed Han Solo," or I'd go on the airplane and airline stewardess would accuse me. And then you'd find a 10-year-old kid who wanted to kill you, betray. But it's always found it very interesting how people don't really listen to the dialogue,
right,
and watch what's going on the screen,
right.
But Lando was up against
Vader
with Darth Vader and Boba Fett,
right,
and
right.
It was all there. But we sometimes take all of these things much too serious.
Yes, yeah. I do for sure.
Way out of proportion and lose really perspective about what's going on.
The situation was that Lucas didn't know if Harrison Ford was going to do the third one, so they put him in that freeze, right? That was the deal. So everyone was kind of on pause, so nobody really knew.
Well, I guess that, I guess all of that's very true. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. But then you got the third movie, a great redemption arc. I mean, you're kind of the hero of the third movie.
Well, yeah, that's what George wanted to do. He wanted to make a hero, make a very specific gesture to show that the heroics of Lando.
Yeah. Oh, God. I'm sorry.
That by destroying the Death Star.
Did you find that? I mean, you were very well known before that, but did you find that it became kind of a situation for a few years where you just couldn't go anywhere? I mean, was it sort of that level of fame when Empire came out because it was such a monster hit?
Well, I had the same problems with the movies I did.
No, that's true. Those are big hits too, right? Yeah, right.
But I mean, it's not a problem.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, there are worse things in life.
As a performer, the whole idea is to find your way in the, to be endearing to everybody.
He blurbs your book in the back, and you mentioned earlier how you had a picture deal with him. Like, people my age and younger have no idea. Most have no idea how influential Berry Gordy is in the history of just entertainment. I mean, one of the 2 or 3 biggest figures probably in the history of music in America.
Yeah, well, when you think of walking into a record store where there used to be record stores.
Sure.
You had the pop, you had folk, you had classical, you had all of these various levels of music, and then you had Motown.
Yeah.
You think about it, he created this one entity.
Yeah.
And with all of these other entities, that was pretty unique.
How would you grade your overall impression of working with Stallone, who's again, for me growing up in the 80s, just an enormous figure of my youth?
Well, we had a good time working with each other.
Yeah.
I had to keep up with him, though. He was in damn good shape.
Yeah. You say he was very hands-on that set, though. He wasn't thrilled with what was going on.
I'm sorry?
In the book, you said that he was sort of hands-on with he clashed with Rutger Hauer and seemed like he was sort of more.
Well, from what I gather, they didn't like each other.
Yeah, but, that probably happened.
One of the best villains I've ever.
He was great. He was great.
Yeah, he was a damn good actor.
Did you like playing the villain more than the even like the movies, say with Diana Ross, like those? Did you like playing sort of a more complicated guy than the straight ahead hero?
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. It makes it much more interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, the fact that Lando was sort of a heroic figure and a leading man figure, but he was dubious, makes it much more interesting in the portrayal. That's why I always like guys like Cagney and Edward G. Robinson.
Right.
But they were, or even Betty Davis. They were endearing. You loved them no matter what they did.
It's true.
Their characters were always interesting.
You know what else I was thinking about too when I was reading the book and thinking about you is we're at a different point in movie history. If The Empire Strikes Back comes out in 1980 and is a huge hit in Return of the Jedi today, you definitely get a movie as a standalone Lando movie for sure. You know what I mean? That would have definitely happened.
Oh, okay.
I would have been great. I would have been all for it. Yeah. Did you like Donald Glover's Lando?
I don't know. I never watched it.
Oh, you didn't watch Solo? Yeah, you didn't see it.
I don't think of anybody playing Lando but me.
Damn right.
I created Lando.
Damn right. No chance. But
I mean, Glover is a very talented young man. Don't misunderstand.
Yeah.
Especially with musically. I mean,
right.
He's done some wonderful things.
Yeah. And then you get to play him again in 2019. You do it one more time. Right? J.J. Abrams calls and you get to play him one more time in the
in the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Well, J.J. Abrams wanted me to come back on the screen doing Lando. And I had a great time working with J.J.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic human being.
How did you find George? A lot of people say George Lucas is quiet. He's remote. Did you find was it a good, and I know he didn't direct either movie, but was he very hands-on on the set of those two movies?
Yeah, he's a hands-on always. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
He is a quiet man.
Yeah. I have to say, so reading your book, I was struck by something. So I lost both my parents as well. I lost both my parents 7 years ago. And you have you mentioned it at the end of your book, in the middle of your book too, where every day you miss saying the words mom and dad. I think you say mommy and daddy. I call my mom and dad.
Mommy and daddy.
Mommy and daddy. I thought that was really, I feel the same way. It just never, it's only been 7 years for me. For you, I know longer, but it never goes away. It's such a strange, empty part of yourself,
It's not strange. It's beautiful.
Yeah. You know what? You're right. I should look at it that way. Yeah. They're just always around, I don't know.
It illustrates, I think, a kind of a moment of innocence that you'll never have again.
Right.
But you want to hold on to.
Right. Yeah. There's a nostalgia attached to it, I guess, in some ways. Yeah. And your mom was an actress, right?
Yeah, mommy, she studied opera for many years. Mm-hmm. And in those years, she was a very pretty young person who had dreams of being a movie star.
Yeah.
But that was not going to happen in those years.
Are you enjoying you seem like a pretty private guy, like a pretty reserved guy for all your, swagger on screen. Are you enjoying this process of selling the book? Are you enjoying the promotional part of it?
Well, it's a lot of work, and I'll be 87 in April. So for me to be running around doing this is not, it's a lot of work.
I bet you the books, I'm telling you, I was just talking, I just grabbed lunch between my show and right here. I saw a guy with a Star Wars bumper sticker in the back of his car. And I showed him the book. I said, I'm interviewing Billy Dee Williams at 1:00. And I said to him, you have to get this book. It's great. And I very rarely, if I don't like an author or I don't like a book, I'm not going to have him on. This book is legitimately a great, personal, thoughtful memoir. It's not like, I did this movie and whatever. It is, I could tell you put a tremendous amount of work into it. It must have taken you years, I would think.
2.5 years on this one.
Yeah. You've written other ones. You've written other stuff, I know. Yeah.
What was I going to say? I was going to say something. Well, I wanted to talk about family, and I wanted to talk about what family means. Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk about the kind of experiences, eclectic experiences.
Yeah.
I mean, the book was on the best, it's 2 weeks now. That's what I wanted to say. It's on the
New York Times?
New York Times, yeah.
Oh, great. It should be. It's a great book. That's great to hear. Yeah. Did you?
But anyway, I really just wanted to impart some perspectives on which I think a lot of times we don't really think about. We tend to think about things in terms of one thing or the other, but there is a whole gray area in our lives that color how we perceive things. And as a painter,
mm-hmm.
You learn that. You learn about gradation, you learn about depth of field, you learn about color and hues, you learn about subtleties, nuances, and that's how I have always lived my life and how I continue to live my life. And I think it
allows me to express myself in the ultimate creative fashion.
Yeah. Are you still looking to act? You can still do roles? If a good role comes up, are you doing it?
Well, it depends, you know. It depends on how much money they,
Yeah.
and all that sort of stuff.
I was wondering, I'm not going to ask about finances specifically, but I do wonder, the one question I did have was like, for a movie like Brian's Song back then, do you have any idea how much you got paid for that?
No, I forget.
Yeah, was it peanuts or decent money back then?
It really, in that situation, it didn't matter really.
Yeah, you're just saying yes.
It was a huge reward.
Yeah. Jack Warden, good guy? I'm a big Jack Warden fan.
Oh yeah, he was great.
He was good? Yeah.
And everybody was great. I mean, the director, Buzz Kulick, who
Yeah.
I really loved very much. Jimmy, we had a great chemistry. It was just the ultimate experience.
Yeah. Well, it's a great career. The book is fantastic. I know you're running around doing a million things. What have we here? Billy Dee Williams, best-selling author, as he should be. Thanks so much for taking some time. The book is great. I recommend everyone go get it. And congratulations. And hopefully we'll talk to you down the line.
I end the book with chandelier.
A lot of chandelier. Yes, chandelier. Yeah. What does that mean?
Well, you know, it's from the old bebop days. I used to spend a lot of time talking to Clark Terry, who was a great trumpeter.
Yeah.
Jazz trumpeter from the bebop days. And he was relating a story about Lester Young. And that phrase came from Lester Young, who was a great saxophonist.
Yeah.
It really, what it's saying is, like if somebody says, how was your day? Rather than go to a long explanation about it, you just say, chandelier.
See, I like that. The other thing I like is you, in the book, one final thing is you don't, like when I grew up, one of the things was obviously the Colt 45 commercials, and people would do SNL stuff, but you're in the book, you're like, yeah, it was great. I got paid a lot of money. A bunch of people watched it. Like, of course I'm going to do that. You know, you're not ever embarrassed by anything, which I think is a great attitude to have. I wish I had it.
No, listen, it's it gives you a kind of an identity.
Right.
Or you can use it to create an identity.
Right.
You know.
Right.
That's what I did.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it very much, and like I said, hopefully we'll talk to you again soon. The book is great. Congratulations.
Well, may the force be with you.
Oh, thank you very much. There you go.